Discussion. And since we already have Nidhi on board here with us, let's actually begin with a little bit brief about her. Nidhi S. Mittal, a distinguished marketing and branding professional with nearly 2 decades of experience. Her expertise spans growth marketing, business development, lead generation. She also holds an award winning international MBA from a top 100B school and numerous industry certifications as well across India, UAE, US, and Australia, excelling in global account management and very recently appointed Group CEO of Blue Vector. She leads its growth and international expansion. Today, she has taken out her precious time to actually moderate the session with us. And the topic of the first panel discussion is consumer trust and transparency in social commerce. Can we please once again give it up for Nidhi S. Mittal? Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Thank you for your precious time. Next up, let me also welcome the first speaker for this panel session, a digital and marketing professional with over 18 years of diverse experience, currently heads digital and omni-channel marketing at Dr. Reddy's for global markets. She is responsible for developing and implementing digital strategies across countries, collaborate with stakeholders worldwide to integrate touch points through the customer journey as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Head Digital Marketing, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Shweta Srivastava. Can we please make some noise for Shweta Srivastava? Welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a great time and a great interactive session. Next up, joining her will be Abhishek Mehta, Head of Marketing, Baggry's. Can we please give it up for Mr. Abhishek Mehta, Head of Marketing at Baggry's, a dynamic marketeer known for leading and growing businesses. He excels in building consumer-centric brands and driving measurable results. His passion and expertise in marketing have consistently propelled brands' growth and engagement. And today he is here to make the most of this session. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Next up on the panel, we have Subhamoy Das, President IABC India. Can we please give it up for Subhamoy Das, a former journalist and communication professional based in India. He has 2 decades of experience in corporate communication, marketing, global public relation, having led multicultural teams in top multinational companies, including eBay, GE, PayPal, Deloitte, and he has worked with media houses such as New York Times Company, Hindustan Times, India Today, and so much more. Welcome, Joe, for joining the panel today. Thank you so much, sir. Joining him will be next speaker, Mihir, Bagga, Market Head India, UNiDAYS. Can we please give it up for Mihir Bagga? An accomplished professional with a robust track record of fostering partnerships and driving corporate growth across diverse industries. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us. As country head at UNiDAYS in India, he engages effectively with student audiences, gaining valuable insights into their preferences and behaviors. Mihir's extensive experience with multiple brands has honed his expertise in social commerce as well, and I'm sure he'll be a great value addition in the panel today. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for the entire panel here who's here to talk about the consumer trust and transparency in social commerce, one of the most important things to be addressed and talked about. Over to you, Nidhi. Let's begin with the session.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a good Friday, I believe, like in a way that the weather has been pretty nice for all of us in Delhi now. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for such a wonderful panel that we have. I'm personally very excited because if you heard about my introduction that I head right now Blue Vector, which is actually an advertising agency, marketing and advertising agency. And every day almost multiple brands comes to our table who are into consumer space. Like the brands who are either at a zero level, they're looking at a 0 to 10 journey, or people who have already scaled the brand from 0 to 10 and they're looking and aspiring for a 10 to 100 journey. Now, interestingly, most of the requirements are specifically around social commerce. So when, Inkspell team reached out to me for this interactive session, I was personally also very excited because, I see the other side of the world now. Before this, I was part of brands. So I understood what brand challenges are, But when as an agency you're trying to kind of understand the challenges that they are facing and how you can resolve them with the strategies, it's a very different world. And interestingly, I was reading a particular stat which kind of was mind blowing for me. The Indian entire social, in fact, globally, not just India, the entire social commerce market in terms of sales is going to be almost around 3.2 trillion by 2024. That's the amount of potential we are talking about, right? So great mix of brands that we have here. We have somebody from FMCG, we have somebody from healthcare, and we have somebody from in a very different kind of an industry, and then a person who leads a brand like an Accenture. So my first question actually will be for something from for someone who is very, I mean, it's an area and it's an industry which I think we are all very big consumers of, which is FMCG, right? Every day, most of us, I'm sure, are buying FMCG products either through the retail outlets that we are very used to visiting every week, every day, or through online channels that we have kind of got loyal to, which could be Big Basket, which could be Zepto, or which could be something like a social commerce platform. So, Abhishek, I would like to understand, you lead a brand like Baggry's, right? And I have been a consumer of that. I mean, I've actually honestly purchased your product, but not from a social commerce platform, to be honest. It has been more of a retail choice that I made, that I went out to an outlet. I saw a bunch of products that I was looking at, and somehow Baggry's got my attention, right? And I purchased it. And obviously, it was a good product. But now, when we are talking about social commerce as a platform, right? How do you see, and FMCG is one, I think industry which is very easy to kind of navigate through that channels, because people do, make a decision, at least even if they're not buying. I think it's a consumer choice which they definitely go out and look for. So how do you think, when we're talking about such a market, that trust and transparency becomes a challenge for all of us, like who are we sitting here. So especially in FMCG as an industry, how do you guys navigate that problem?
So before I share anything, even before I joined Baggry's, when I was working with Jubilant, I was a consumer of Baggry's.
Okay.
It actually started during the time of COVID. So first wave, when everybody was cooking, ordering, exotic ingredients, trying out different things. But second wave, everyone sort of realized, it's important to put focus on your health as well. That is where we discovered oats, right? It could be a healthy option, right? We started integrating in our health. And then, of course, we tried number of brands, and I don't blame any of them. It's because Baggry's in general stood out in terms of quality and all that. So, when I joined Baggry's, of course, I got a chance to speak to the founders, the product team, visited our factories. What I've understood is, in general, for any FMCG brand, how you put consumers, benefits in place is most important. There are guys like, Hemant Remsingha, a number of others who are exposing brands, literally, after brand's life. It would be difficult to be a brand marketer either if you're into FMCG, because product teams take their own sweet time to fix sugar, fix palm oil, a lot of other things, right? And of course, our job as marketers to sell the product, right? If we have to sell this water bottles, we have to sell this, right? So what we do in journal as at Baggry's is put consumers, interests at the core of our marketing, at core of our product. When we, as a team, we are super sure that this product is really good, marketing becomes easier. We talk on social commerce, so there are two aspects of it. One is, of course, social commerce. One is second, like the one you mentioned, you went to the store, you saw our pack and you liked it. That's the packaging part of it. Clear. If you look at our previous packaging versus the one you started buying it, there's a lot of difference. We made it upfront, bold claim, in NI part is more clear, ingredients are more clear. But in terms of social commerce, I think clear, honest storytelling is most important to the consumer. You need to tell them this is all what is inside the pack, even on social media, even on Instagram, Facebook, even when they land up on your website as well. You don't need to talk about entertainment, because brand campaigns can't be around entertainment all the time. You have to educate them. You have to tell them what all this product would help you in terms of it, because the focus is on health. Yeah, if I have to binge or have something interesting, I would go to a Delhi market and have chole bhature and all that, right? Eating healthy foods is sort of my majboori these days. It's everyone's, right? Everyone wants to control their weight. Nobody likes to eat healthy. Generally, healthy food is considered bland. So that is where that information wala angle comes into picture as well. We try to convey that this is all benefits you would get. This is the tasty part. Taste part is there as well. You don't need to compromise on taste as well. And then integrate all this with the influencers who are relevant to the industry. So if you look at most of our Instagram in journal advertising campaign, we partner with a lot of dietitians, doctors, health experts, which are subject matter experts, rather than having a beauty influencers giving her some bucks and she promoting our product. The other product she's promoting is from a makeup brand. Doesn't build relevancy, right? Food is sacred in India. You wouldn't. I can sell you once, right? But if I have to build LTVs or repeat, I have to give you a good quality product, right? And it has to be endorsed by right set of people. So we target, identify right set of influencers. Even to this day, if you go to a lot of dietitian, they would recommend our wheat brand. That's the quality of the product. So we partner with these set of influencers, right set of influencers, who can actually promote our product, who people can trust in, and of course leverage all this with consumer listening, because they're the king, right? If we launch something internally, we felt like the consumer research says it's a fantastic product, right? But in journal, it turns out to be shit, right? The consumer taste turns out to be bad. We have to take that feedback, talk to our product team, address that on social media, address in journal, whatever platforms available, and of course, keep working with the team on enhancing the product. That's how we sort of manage everything at Baggry's.
No, I think Abhishek, you kind of nailed it, and some of the points that you mentioned, I was just thinking about. That's the same conversations I was referring to. That it's not a touch, like it's a touch of feel product, but when you're making a choice on a social commerce platform, you kind of lack that, right? You cannot do that. You just mentioned about a Baggry's package that probably I would have picked up from a retail, and maybe that could have been one of the factors for me to choose, right? I probably liked your packaging, so transformative, so transparent, very informative, or maybe fun. Yeah. Right? So even when brands have a conversation, it is a matter of importance that we tell them, especially in FMCG, that branding plays a very important role for you. Packaging is something that you should really try out a lot, because that is that small moment of trust which a consumer has to build with you, and that's where the journey starts. So I think that's a very important part that you mentioned, that by the time they land into this boring food which you're talking about, there's this whole journey where a lot of factors will play in for them to convert.
Right. So one of the things I learned working directly with promoters or founders, say Bharatiyas or Baggry's in journal, is, in terms of advertising, cool and all that looks good in terms of packaging. Yeah. But that's sort of a buzzword. It's still there. There's the reason some brands scaled only to a certain extent. And then we have likes of Unilever, we have likes of, Nestle and all these big serious brands. Because you can get initial level buzz, but in terms of sustain all these things, you have to have good quality product. You have to have serious level of communication, because a mother would be buying it. A person who is into fitness would be buying it on a regular basis. Yeah. So absolutely, it can't be flashy all the time.
No, great. And you mentioned the point of influencer. So then, taking that cue, I'll probably hop on to Mihir. I'll take the liberty of kind of putting you all guys on spot. But Mihir, your brand is a very interesting one, right? I mean, similarly, like the TG might be pretty much similar all around, but there's a very specific focus for Gen Z, right? UNiDAYS primarily focuses on around Gen Z. And how do you kind of maintain the similar factors or more additional factors in terms of your effort with that kind of a demographic? Because see, I mean, as much as we talk about Gen Z as a conversation, as a topic, but we know that they are far more informed right now, right, in every sector. So what are a few things that you as a brand look very differently for this particular demographic?
Yep. Hi everyone. So when I joined UNiDAYS, I came from a background of ATM and JioSound with very established brands. But when we came here, we didn't have a product. The product was like the brands were giving us offers and discounts, and we were verifying students for them. So I think initially when we came in, we had different set of brands who came in, like a brand like Apple or maybe a brand like NewMe, which are very new in the industry. So everyone has their own journey, and everyone wants to work with UNiDAYS in a different way, where they want to understand what the students want. So we started some surveys initially when I joined in, and there were 3 feedback which came in. It was survey that we did. First feedback was like 70% of our students, or we only have students which we cater to, they said that they will only buy products from a brand till the time they are sure that this brand is good or not. So they will verify about the brand, do some consumer insights about it. That was one insight which we got. 95% of the students said that we will only buy from brands which are honest and who have a clear communication which is happening. They don't want to buy from anywhere which is not authentic. And the third one, which was like 75% of the student, which was a very surprising insight, was that 75% said that we are ready to pay a premium to a product if we feel that this product is socially relevant. So, so that was because we generally associate students with lesser amount of money, but they're ready to pay a premium if they find the brand to be authentic. So then we understood that trust and transparency play a very crucial role when you even have to cater this to this audience, because this is an audience which is everyone is chasing, because this has the highest LTV and these are the future for every brand to capture, right? And other thing which we now understood in the last couple of years is that this audience is a very digital native audience. I always call them a vertical generation because they use their smartphones like this, and our generation or the previous generation used it on the laptop, which is horizontal generation. So that's one of the insights which we have seen, and so everything has to be done on the smartphone. And the other thing which we need to build for any brand is that your communication has to be very precise, because they have a very short attention span. 10 seconds is what industry says. Be authentic, be precise, and be relevant in 10 seconds. Else the student will go on to the other brand. So that's one of the key insights which we got from the students. And other thing is that this audience is more socially, believes in being more socially relevant. They said, okay, this campaign is done by Nestle, which is relevant. They will say, oh yeah, we want to be a part of it. And traditional advertising is technically a no-go for them. They want to be a participant in everything. That's why I think this influencer marketing has come into the picture, because they feel that this user-generated content, which is coming in from people similar to them. Even in that influencer part, people say that if an artist or a celebrity becomes an influencer, they can't become an influencer in that way, because people don't understand at all he or she is a celebrity, that he or she is not similar to me. It has to come from people similar to them. So that's why all this UGC content which is coming in from people like us is making more sense, and they are becoming more influential than celebrities doing it. There was an example which we discussed last time also, was that when Alia Bhatt said in one program that, oh, have you put sugar in this? I will not have tea. But then she does an ad for fruity. People were like, there was a lot of backlash from Gen Z where they said that she doesn't bring sugar, but she's pushing us the same content. So I think that becomes a very important point for all the brands to focus on, is that whatever you're communicating has to match with what is being presented and what they believe into. So that's one of the insights which we have seen. And the other thing which is there is that students now are very concerned about privacy, data protection. We work with Apple, and Apple in India and globally also have built in a strategy where they say that your privacy and your data is safe with us. That because people now believe that data is the biggest thing, right?
It's the biggest currency
you have. So students don't want to pass on to that, and these students will become a future consumer as well. And they are and now this student generation, we were talking in the morning, right? Now they're even influencing the decision making at their families, at the family level. They're telling their dad, their moms to buy this product. So this is an audience which everyone is very careful about how to present themselves. So insight is that be authentic, be yourself, and don't put jazz, because jazz will go away. And I think that, and keep it very crisp, because if it's more than a few minutes, people will not hear you.
Yeah, no, in fact, you touched upon so many interesting factors, Mihir, and that is actually what we see as a consumer also on a day-to-day basis, right? Even to make a choice of any specific product, like we were talking about a backpack that I'm looking to buy, right? I think social commerce became a platform for a lot of my research, right? I could have just gone to a platform like a marketplace like an Amazon or a Myntra, or just Googled it out. But I was just trying to see what is the, the reality around that product. So there's a particular bag that I liked, but I kept looking on different content, So I think with all these factors that you mentioned, it also gives brand a lot of leeway to create multiple set of content communication pieces, right? Like influencer is one, then putting that, so I mean, if you're looking just at the typical platforms initially, it kind of restricts you, right? You cannot overdo it. But on social e-commerce, social commerce platforms, you have a lot of liberty to play around with different content sets and still keep them engaged. And like we were talking about there at the start, even if they're not making a decision right there, if they're not clicking a shop button, let's say on Instagram, but they liked it, they decided that they will buy eventually your product. So I think that plays a very important role. And for all of us, like, I mean, your audience is very targeted Gen Z students, but I think most of us are realizing that those are the decision makers in the houses now, right? I mean, you can't tell a kid that, okay, I'm bringing this car. The kid will say, okay, dad, I'll tell you which car to bring. So that's the reality that we're facing, right? That actually brings me to Shumoy. Shumoy, we have discussed a lot of factors, right? And I'm not targeting a specific question to you, but I generally just want to understand that all these factors, or maybe there are more, from a consumer side, or like as a marketer and as a consumer as well, how have you seen the market evolving over the years? You have been part of so many brands and other areas. How do you see that there could be? Are we still missing out specific factors that we have not discussed so far to tap that audience?
I think it's generally same. What I think as a consumer when I go and when I see an ad on Facebook, for example, and then I click on something on Instagram, or generally go to Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a very trusted site, but any other, lesser known online brand or any e-commerce that I'm engaging with, it's as both as a marketer, if I were if I were the brand, or if I were on the other side, it would be almost the same. So I've kind of summarized, probably oversimplified into 6 things. So 3 P's and 3 R's, okay? So 3 P's, basically first one, we got the Baggry example there. So you had the product specifications, like the product authenticity. So you have to clearly state where is the product coming from, what does it contain, all of those things, be transparent in that. The second is pricing. When you go into the shopping cart, you should not be you add your tax, you add your shipping costs and all of those things. It should be very clear and transparent that this is what I'm paying, no hidden cost and all. The third P is policies, right? What's your return policy? What's your, refund policy and things like that. And then there are 3 R's. The first is reviews. So, I mean, especially in social commerce, you have the comment, and people are commenting everything there. And sometimes the comments are in the form of a feedback, sometimes it's a complaint. So, are you, are you reviewing those properly? Are you responding to those complaints, or, on time? So, responsiveness is the second R. And then the ratings, you have those 3 stars, 4 stars. So, other than that, of course, there is this, the other things, being a good company, being socially responsible. Then you have the endorsements. It should come from from a really from the peer group, or from a really film star, which doesn't have anything to do with the brand. But other than that, I think I simplified it into 3 P's and 3 R's.
Yes. No, very interesting. In fact, the point that you mentioned around, so you gave us few other layers of information transparency that we talked about, like policies and even the cost breakdown, right? So when you actually go to a store, very unusually, we never actually compare also. Like very rarely we'll do that. Okay, this is costing me $100, this is 200. But when we are doing online, somehow the platforms also work around that way, right? They might give us a comparison. Right? If we have seen that in travel industry a lot, that this is the cheaper ticket you're getting, so it kind of works in your brain.
And is your transaction secure? Are you using a secure gateway? That is
absolutely. And so is the case of policies as well, right? I mean, we were never used to pay a lot of attention to them, but I think marketplaces like Amazon and Myntra, they actually forced it on us. So even if you make a purchase out there, they put up some very specific policies that will directly impact your decision, which is, let's say, a return policy. And they'll put it out that, hassle-free for teens and all. So I think these are the level of transparencies which brands has to, and there are brands like Amazon which has stood out that, I've been as a consumer, I've seen that they've even returned me a product which did not had a return policy. They said, it's okay. I mean, you didn't see that as a customer. It's a mistake that you made. We are happy to return it, and we'll take up that thing. So, that is how they maintain the loyalty of the brand. So that's amazing. Now, Shweta, very different industry, part of, right? Dr. Reddy's, and, mostly we have discussed a lot of parameters around how to look at trust and transparency. But when we come to your side of the industry, right, healthcare, and as a consumer as well, we have discussed that, let's say if I'm buying something from Farm Easy or any other platform, that's a very difficult industry to tackle, right? apart from just trust and transparency, credibility plays a lot of most important role, right? Because at the end of the day, you're talking about health of an
Absolutely.
individual.
Yeah.
So, how do you tackle that at your workplace?
No, you rightly mentioned. So credibility in healthcare is important, not just from the brand side, but even the customer side, and the whole time for that is very low, right? So it's not that you're building a credibility, and that is where the importance comes in, because now prior to pharma, I was working with consumer brands. The problem there that I see, and even in most of the companies, is the customer has become more of a transactional, value there. So we only look at, okay, how many sellouts we are making, how much sales we are doing. We never look at the complete relationship with the customer throughout his or her life continuum, right? And that's something which now brands are, understanding, and they are like, we have multiple brands now. We have multiple medicines which could be used at every stages of, could be a child or a woman who's pregnant, once they grow, they age. So we do have. So I think that's one thing which we have seriously taken care of, whereas that we are not just talking about the brand, but we are talking about the problems that the customer or consumer may face at each of the stages of their life, and then how do we tackle it through content. And moreover, if I talk about that, what exactly we do now, this is something that is our vision, right? That we have to be there. We have to be more of a partner, looking at the whole life continuum and not just a transaction that we make with them. For that, what do? We do 5 things, 4 to 5 things. The first thing is that more working towards an omni channel and omni customer presence, right? Which means that leveraging data, obviously responsibility, and we'll talk about it later. But then how do we use that? But then with that content analytics, which we know that which content will be more suited. And we also have more intuitive, leveraging Gen AI, we also know that which content may be more suited to a certain consumer. Now that's one thing. The second is the ecosystem approach, which is in our kind of an industry, a doctor plays a very important role, a pharmacist play a very important role, the family plays a very important role. And there are countries, like many of the Central Asia countries that we handle, the woman of the house actually takes the decision. So even that cultural change is also there. So for that, it's, what we do is like, a multi-pronged strategy where we have individual customer journeys for all of these people, and then how do they all connect back to a decision making which a consumer does. So that's the second one. The third one is also making sure, and that's more to do with marketing, that how do we make sure that our marketing mix or the media mix has more of pull-based channels and initiatives and programs rather than push. How do we do this? Why influencer marketing is more popular? Why micro-influencers, as Mihir was mentioning, not just the credible stars of the world, but then small micro-influencers play more important role, because that is what the generation wants, right? So decisions are being taken by younger, older, all kind of generations. So these are 3, 4 things. And then the fourth is very important, which automatically happens in healthcare, because the whole review mechanism is very strong. The MLR and, that is very stringent. So I think some of those things are, all, they're taken care of. So that's where the credibility kind of bits gets covered.
Yeah. No, I think, Shweta, you mentioned about a very important part, which you gave us a new point, which is longevity, right? So social commerce is obviously, it is becoming very transactional, right? In fact, most of the commerce is becoming like that.
Correct.
Brands are struggling for the term which used to be very common called loyalty, right? We knew that this is the only brand that we'll have. We never, like Amul butter is the only thing that ever came to my house, right? But maybe today I'm ready to experiment another one. So we are losing that, that part.
And
but
unfortunately, brands are actually realizing the importance of loyalty once they have done the transaction. I think that's, that's something which is...
So that's a very good thing that you mentioned, that obviously because it is important for your industry, but I think as a marketer or maybe consumers internally also as a business, you understand that, this is a short-term game. Right? And like I was saying, we have these conversations every day. I have this on my table, and the brands which are struggling from 10 to 100, that's the problem, because they have probably cracked the maths of 0 to 10 by performance marketing and jazz. But there's longevity, there's that long-term connection that we are doing. You gave us an example of 3 layers of decision making in a house, or culturally how different they are. So I think those parts are something that as us, all of us like brand managers, we have to be very, very of that. There could be a short-term play. Obviously, we all want revenues, but I think the brands will look from a very longer lens are the ones that will sustain. right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's very important, and yours obviously would have been an industry to give us that insight. So great. But that also has a flip side, and I'll come back to Abhishek on that one. Because you have a lot of experience on performance marketing and online reputation and all. We all know it, right? And I'm sure we have not done it. Probably we don't come from those ethos, maybe. But there's a flip side to this as well. That there's a lot of backlash also, which happens. There's a lot of as much as it works in our favor, and we might be as honest as we can be. But still, there are communications which can open up, which makes it difficult for a brand to maintain an online reputation, right? Even one such message or any such note can just tarnish it off.
Right.
So as an FMCG brand, especially because we are all decision makers, like we are just everybody has an opinion, and very easily for like you yourself said, it's a bland product, but I might just go on a handle and just trash it out for that, which is the nature of that product, right? You cannot control it. So how do you look it, and how do you kind of control that part of your brand?
Sure. So before I start answering, I want to tell Shweta, whatever you are doing with Apollo is working at least on me. I'm buying medicines I don't need. Just for free delivery. Okay? And the point, of course. So see, on FMCG there are 2-3. It could be a very detailed answer. I won't give you top level, top 2-3 things which generally works. So one is, of course, communication, and second is CRM. So whatever, I tell all my media agencies, and this is something I've been telling them from last 5-6 years, until unless your ads don't generate comments, then it's not been shown to the right set of people. It generally happens on real estate ads, where you people see ke chor hai and all that wala gyan, right? Or they don't give possession, because most of them generally serve to the right set of people. Your branding team runs a campaign, you see, okay, 1 million plus views, this sort of engagement, comment-wise, 5-6, journal, random, heart shape and all that done. Until unless generate right set of comments, your media campaign is not working for you. Okay, so again,
That's a very interesting
so this
metric
is
that you
again my
mentioned.
learning,
I
right?
want comments.
I presented these numbers to my founders, board of directors and all that, right? And felt happy about it. Okay, look at what we have done. CPM was 150, we did it in 30 rupees, right? It served to the, oh, kisi Bhojpuri channel pe chal gaya and all that, right? So it doesn't happen. It just generally does happen. So, 2-3 things which is very important. One's brand communication. As consumers, or even the next generation which is coming, they've seen enough ads right now. They understand what is an ad, what is you're thinking of, I'm creatively telling you something, and then subtly the brand placement would be there and all that. Those all days are gone. They're watching, 12 seasons wala documentaries now, series now. So they probably understand what is marketing, what is not marketing. So as a brand, you need to be very clear about it, what you want to tell consumer. And like Mihir mentioned, 10 seconds is the span, right? And they're the decision maker. They would influence their mothers, their big brothers, sisters, everyone in the family to buy these products. So from brand side, you have to be very clear, very crisp in terms of communication. Talk about benefits, talk about use cases, talk in general about how this product is going to add value to your life. Okay, you don't need to play a 20-second, bhacha bhag ke aaya and all that wala gyan. It's sort of done now, right? It used to work in TV days, right? People had time that time, and there's only 1 or 2 modes of entertainment. So one is that from brand side. Be very clear. Don't try to sell them an ad. Try to sell them a benefit, because that's why people engage with brands. Second is, the UGC part. So again, this is again my personal philosophy and something which I've learned talking to a lot of marketers is celebrities, again, like you mentioned, is something which brand marketers as, custodians want a medal on their resume more than the brands want or consumers want. Right? It's something, I signed this celebrity, this is not a brand ambassador. But in most of the cases, it doesn't make sense. So that UGC content, the subject matter expert, the customers who are actually like you and me, giving their honest reviews, does work. One of the brands you can see is Goodbug. Yeah?
I'm a consumer.
You're a consumer, right? And then, of course, those influencer videos must have persuaded you, right? There was one brand, apple cider vinegar ka, Flix, yeah. So, don't take me otherwise. What they used to do, they used to shoot these good-looking models, right? To male, female, both. And you would see like, okay, I would get this type of body or fitness regime and all that. So that sort of really works. If you show me you would become like a Ranveer Kapoor in 15 days by eating muesli, this won't work for me, right? Because somewhere in my mind, I have realized, I can fly this much, right? So consumers are realistic these days. These are two elements, and a third is CRM part of it. You wherever you can get the data, talk to them, try to understand what are the problems. Of course, map them basis their product preferences, basis their last experiences, integrate, activate your customer teams, talk to them, figure out there are negative comments, talk to them. Of course, you can't hide or delete all of them. Try to get an understanding what is working, what is not working. If your shipping policies are not right, you can't ship it within 2 days, 1 days, stop selling from your D2C website for some time, grow some other channels, right? So, and then of course try replying, as basic things as DMs and then in general comments to your brand. So these are three important factors which I see generally works. And of course it could be sub layers of your targeting, of course your creative or your remarketing under this.
In fact, you have given us a completely different perspective to this word we keep hearing, and I'm sure all the marketers must have, which is the vanity metrics, right? Like you're the one who's telling, no, I want to see the comments, right? I don't want to take that badge of having a celebrity for my brand, which is like, might be something good for my resume later on, that, okay, I onboarded a celebrity, but it didn't work for my brand, right? Yeah. Nobody came. Yeah, because it has to be, and that's the second point that you mentioned, that we are actually very smart. Even we are not Gen Zs talking here, but still, it's very easy to figure out what is really an ad that is coming in front of you, or what is something which is a brand communication, right? That is why this entire industry of influencer UGC cropped up. Right, like when we talk to brands every day, especially in FMCG, lot of them come to our table. They ask us that we want influencer and UGC. Like that's an ask on the table. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the honesty part really takes care of. But yeah, as brand managers, I think we also have to take an onus to be be very vocal about it, that this is what we want, right? Rather than just getting these things under the carpet and going with the standard vanity metrics. I think we should be, rigid enough to say that this is what will work for the brand. Exactly. So I think that's very important. And that brings me to Mihir, because we have been taking a lot of your reference. So I thought time to ask you. We were talking about the flip side. And and we talked about influencer marketing, and especially for Gen Z and all. Now that is an area, again, maybe just giving, like, let's say, what are the metrics that you manage when you look at specifically, let's say, influencer marketing or UGC as a content piece? Because it also opens up a door for you. You're dealing with a particular set of audience, which is students in Gen Z, which is anyway very vocal about stuff, right? They'll just come and bash you down in a minute. And at the same time, you're relying on content pieces where you do not have a lot of direct control. The persona and the personality of that individual works a lot, maybe in your favor or maybe not. So is there anything that you very explicitly look into when you try to use these type of content communications?
Yep. So I think one thing I want to say is that this is the gyan which we tell brands, yeah, when they come to us to work for influencer marketing, is that trust is the currency of influence. That's how I start the conversation, and then I come down to the ground level and tell them that the influencer which we are onboarding have to be very relevant to the brand which is there. And you don't need to go to an influencer who is doing well, but if their brand ethos are different than your ethos, then it will not work. A tech guru can't be promoting H&M, right? Because he's known for providing updates on tech product itself. So I think that becomes first metric is you want to define what type of influencer you have to go for, who has the same brand value as you. Secondly, we understand is that brands have a different, as I said, right? Numi may be a different life cycle. Apple is on a different life cycle. So every brand has a different life cycle. So we need to understand from them is that what do they want to do. So that's why the influencer role will also come in, because you need to give clarity to influencer as well. Somewhere it has brand awareness, somewhere it is selling. So if it is brand awareness, then go for a micro influencer, which is like a bigger influencer. If you want to drive sale, then go for a micro influencer who have a smaller set of user base, but a more engaged user base. So that will result in more transactions for you. So that is another part we do. Third, what we also do is that we figure out that what are the metrics on that influencer. So what now we understood is that a lot of influencers buy followers on their platform. So one of the metrics which we now see is that, which we were also discussing right now, was that number of engagements, likes, share. You might have 1 lakh followers if the conversion ratio is on engagement and share the 0.3%, that's not good. even though you might have 30,000 followers, but you have higher metrics on engagement, likes and share, then we'll go to that influencer. Because then it becomes, because any which way the communication is getting communicated to the users. The other thing which becomes important is that how is that person putting it on their social handle and how your relationship is being presented. Because end of the day, the followers which this influencer has is their family. That's how they project it, and that's true also. People feel that, oh, he or she is part of our family. So the way you treat your influencer on your side also becomes important, because end of the day, you are acquiring his family. Until unless he or she is a part of your family, then his or her follower will not become a part of your family. So you have to do that. And the other thing is that the influencer, the content which is being made has to be very, like people have to be a part of that journey, right? If they say that, okay, there is a campaign which is going on, okay, hashtag has to be there.
Storytelling has to be there.
Storytelling has to be there. People need to get involved in that, and they should feel a part of it. They should see that, oh, my friend is doing it, then I should also do it. This is how Facebook became so famous, because Mark Zuckerberg said this, that the biggest influence a person will have is a recommendation from a trusted friend. So if they see my friend is doing this hashtag, then I also should do it and become a part of that cycle. And then they become brand advocates also, because they feel, okay, if I can talk about this brand, and if the brand is responding to my comments, then this brand is a genuine product and I believe in their philosophy. And then they become, without even knowing, they become brand advocates. So I think that's few things which we work with brands about, is that how do they go to the influencer, what type of influencer, what type of strategy has to be built around it, and then we go to the market and do it.
And this is such a huge shift you're talking about, like few years back when this entire industry of influencer marketing or UGC content and content on social commerce started, right? I don't think so brands were so emotionally vested in that as a property. What you just told in the last 5 minutes is, I could just feel that, emotion coming out, that you're so emotionally vested into it, that you're just not looking at it as one part of my media mix, that, okay, I'll also do influencer marketing, I'll put some money in there. You're actually very worried about it, that are these followers correct? Is the metrics that I'm getting is right? Will it reach it to my right audience? Because at least that is the portion that you can control, right? Like, it's the same with celebrities as well. I mean, they end up doing something wrong, and the next day the brand gets, tarnished about it, though it had nothing to do with them. Same is the similar space. So as much as you're exposing your brand to see these things, I think there's still a good portion of it that you can control by being really vested into it. So which is, I think, something which made a lot of point and sense to us. And Shweta, coming to you on this, I'm not really sure, honestly, my bad, I've not really seen and realized that influencer as a content piece, does it really work well in your industry? Or if I talk about generally this industry, it's considered very laid back, right? In terms of, like, we would not really imagine you guys doing a lot of experimentation, and we might think that you are not the first movers when it comes to Gen AI and stuff like that. So help us know that, is it a myth that we are living in? Is it very different from your side of the table?
It was a myth that I believed when I joined pharmaceutical industry for the first time, which was right during the COVID time. But I think things have changed. I think it's a do or die situation. COVID has kind of escalated, all of the change management which could happen to healthcare industry. And the whole reason is because, people are buying online. There was a behavior change which will continue to happen. And if you talk, and that, that gives a lot of opportunity for healthcare companies, because obviously profitability is also there. So that gives a lot of room for innovation. And that's where, now healthcare companies have started investing, and even we started investing. Now, why do we need this? Now, this whole thing comes from what is the problem that we are facing. The problem is that, what everybody here we are talking about is we need to give consumers or customers a different experience. And everybody is different. What Mihir was saying, what Abhishek is saying, every consumer is different. Now, this also means that while we can control a lot of channels, we can decide, okay, what media mix we need to have, but where is the content? Right? So if you eventually give the same creative and content to everybody, it doesn't work. So that is where, the whole idea of why not leverage Gen AI for content, not just production of content, but even approval, because, the more you will produce content, the whole approval system also goes for a toss. And when we are talking about a scale, so I'll just to give you a scale, the amount of number of doctors and number of consumers, patients that we have, if we start developing content, and if we think that one content piece will take 3 hours to get created, we would take 3,000 years to develop the content, right? That's the maths that we have done, and which is not a joke. And this and imagine if it's an FMCG, you know, they'll probably take 30,000 years, right? So I think that is the scale that we.
Abhishek will never be able to attend another panel then.
So that is the scale that we need for content production, and which is also based on some data. So here we are not talking about some gut feel of a brand manager. Here we are talking that what exactly the consumer wants. And based on his consumption behavior and which content the consumer is liking. And that's where, you know, Gen AI plays a very important role. Obviously, you cannot just, you know, go ahead and then develop something. I think it requires a lot of regulation as well to avoid plagiarism and all. But then there is a lot of scope in production of creatives, right? So production of creatives on the fly, multiple creatives running at the same time. I think that is where we have leveraged it. Obviously for imagery now, because videos are working, so obviously you have to use DALL-E for that, and you know, GPT-4 that we are using, and we have created one very in-house tool also, which kind of works on optimization of the creative very quickly, right? So
That's
a simple
in-house technology you guys have built.
the technology obviously is global. It's open source, yeah,
Layered it up as a
but
tool.
developed, and then, you know, we will be working with one partner for the overall production of content and the managing of that. So I think this is because, you know, this was the area that we were facing a lot of challenge. We had multiple channels, you know, consumer numbers were going very high. How do you manage content? And that's something that, you know, we are building it up.
No, that's very refreshing because, you know, like I said, probably I was blindsided
Yeah.
that I never imagined. And how can
Many
a panel,
companies, by
how
the way.
can a panel be
Yeah.
completed without AI conversation? And so you
And many companies are, and in fact, the kind of results that we have seen, you know,
Yeah.
with this scaling of content, your cost of content development can even come down to, say, a 40% decrease by year 2. Year 3 could be 50%. You
not
never
good
know.
for us, we're an agency. But you know, what you're referring to is as an enabler. You know, I mean, that's one conversation we always try to run around. You know, AI confuses us that whether it's killing us, whether it's an enabler. What you just said, it's a pure play enabler for you, and what an industry to kind of adapt to it, right?
Absolutely.
To the level. So,
It's a disruptor. We have to be very careful about it. I'm not saying that we start, you know, generating images which suddenly some person may come on and then kind of sue a case on us that, you know, the image looks like us. but I think we have to be very careful about, you know, when we use it.
Yeah,
It cannot be completely automated.
otherwise,
that's
we'll go
for
back
sure.
to our question one: trust and transparency.
Yes.
So that's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think probably you know, as we will which is just kind of coming to the closure. Before that, like Shumoy, I wanted to ask a completely different segment and touch upon. And I also come from that industry, and I think in some way, like Mihir also works on both sides. Like he has a B2C, you know, customer base that he had to look into, but at the same time, he has to work in a very B2B setup as well, where he tries to onboard those brands to trust their platform and then reach out to that consumer, right? That creates a layer of B2B, B2B, and C. So in that industry, you know, because normally we do not talk about that industry around all these, you know, content pieces or social commerce. But I think there are still a lot of areas in there, especially thought leadership. Like, you know, as a company, when we recommend a marketing strategy to any such brand who's coming into that space, thought leadership is one that we can, obviously, I mean, it's kind of somewhere influencer and celebrity zone, but it has a very different rationale behind it. So you have a huge background in that space, and, you know, currently associated with one as well. How do you see that particular industry when we talk about transparency, trust, and privacy issues that we were just talking about?
Right. So when it comes to trust and transparency, I think I was just looking at what the aspects would be and trying to differentiate between B2C, B2B, and the basics are the same, basically. So transparency is what you practice every day. Trust is what you build over time, right? So, I mean, it stands good for, right, for everybody. So then I started to break down into various aspects of what would be applicable for B2B. Then again, I came up with last night I was doing this, and I came up with an acronym, PERCEPTS. Okay, PERCEPTS. Okay, I'll tell you what these are, just for my own sake to remember. So P stands for, you know, practices. Like, do you have transparent business practices as a corporate? Do you have transparent business practices? So does your website have clear, you know, call out of your vision, mission, values, what is your long-term plan, and things like that? So because you're selling to, you're not selling on social media, of course, you know. So as far as social media is concerned, for B2B, only LinkedIn works, right? So, and if you're probably recruiting, we'll go to a Facebook or an Instagram. But otherwise, that is not the place where B2B companies really need to be. So basically, your website has to be really strong and telling you. And if you're a public limited company, you'll have to have those disclosures, right? So do you have those, transparent business practices? So that's practices P. E stands for expertise. So are you an expert in that area? I mean, you cannot be expert in a lot of things. You need to specialize in certain things. If I need this kind of a service, I would be going to this kind of a company, right? So you have to build that expertise. So demonstrate that expertise. You'll have to demonstrate that expertise. Maybe your domain experts can, become your brand ambassadors here. It's not influencers that work. It's thought leadership, as you said. So expertise, E. R stands for relationship. Like, it's all trust. The deeper the relationship, the deeper is the trust. And always focus on long-term relationship. That's how B2B businesses work. It's not just selling one product and then, of course, you said that you can sell one time, but you'll not come back again. But here it's even more involved. To make a $1 million kind of investment in a certain service, you really need to be deep into it. So relationship is very, very important in B2B. Again, C. C is for communication. As you said, repeatedly we have been talking about communication, so it has to be open, honest, direct, consistent communication. Also, you can add to that C, collaboration. When you are actually building a product in an FMCG context, if you are collaborating with you're getting your feedback and collaborating, like mera wala color or mera wala Maggie or something like that, or a Dove thing that you. And another C that you can, in consulting business, it has to be consultative with the client. You develop the solution, right? So that is C. E stands for ethics, basically. By ethics, I mean that do you have the industry best practices that is being followed? For example, data privacy, or the security and all of those things. It has to be ethical, because are you following the law of the land? It has to be very, very legal, right? Otherwise, it's very, very high value, high stakes that you are dealing with. So we have talked about P, R, C, E. Now again, P. Another P is partnerships. Do you have the partnerships with the best in the world? Like, is it a Google certified or a Microsoft certified, or you have, for ERP, is it an SAP or an Oracle? So you have to have those logos there, that we partner with. Our partners are these. When we go to our clients, so these are the partners that we deal with. We don't, go to, not unknown brands, right? And of course, collaborations. For example, to give you an FMCG, Motorola just launched earbud, right? It says sound by Bose, right? So, or the Carl Zeiss lens that's on a Sony phone or a Sony camera. So you're collaborating with the best makers, and of course awards and accolades. Like if you're participating in certain awards that are really credible, so you build your credibility that we are certified, we are much awarded, right? So that's C. E again stands for no. So we said C, P, E, R, C, E, P.
The T left.
T, yeah. T again is thought leadership. So thought leadership is, again, influencers don't work. It has to be thought provoking. You have to many times challenge the status quo. You cannot just give, how are you different, right? So your thought leaders really come into play there. Your experts, your leaders need to be thought leaders in the industry. That's how your company stands out. So that's P, R, C, P, T. And last is S. Are you socially responsible? That's very important, that especially with Gen Z. But in any way, are you following the ESG norms? Are you following sustainable, business practices? Or are you socially responsible, like your CSR? So that's how I would sum it up.
No, that's a good summary, and you gave us a word to remember, percept. So I think this is call out, and I think a great conversation, guys. And I have a very interesting start to end this with for everyone that still after all of the efforts that we are doing at our tables every day, 78% of the folks are still not ready to buy through social commerce. They still don't trust it. It came out through, I think, one of the Salesforce report. So I think there's a still lot of groundwork to be done, but I think we're there.
And that boils down to transparency and trust, because how much can you trust social media? Because platforms like Facebook, they really don't check who's advertising. Especially with the real estate ads, and then there are some fake stuff. Most of those are not trustworthy.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think great.
Self-declaration in place, I think this would be sorted.
Sorry?
Self-declaration in place
Yes.
from the government.
Yeah. I'm sure there will be there's a lot of work, not just us, but the government of every country, and even these platform holders are like, every day we see that the US consulate is sitting down with Mark Zuckerberg and trying to put things in place. So I think that will change. I don't know if we have time for any Q&A. Okay, we don't. So we talk about it. But we are all hanging around here, so people can catch us. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the lovely audience.